Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of Sports Brawl. I'm your host and judge for tonight, the head sports admin, Jonathan the Raptor Master Peck. Today, we got a returning player to the Sports Brawl and a brand new competitor to face along with them. So, I'm very intrigued that we're about to do in the next coming hour. So, let me introduce the player who we've seen him before. We didn't see him for a while, and basically the last time you seen this guy intimate sort of in the Sports Bar rookies bracket, which unfortunately he came very close to winning that match. Let me introduce a cool guy from Boston himself, Dan Skip Allen. How you doing, Dan?
I'm doing good. Glad to get another chance at it. I thought I did pretty good that time. I didn't do as good as I would like to have done, but I'm always good up for debating sports, and I'm hearing good things about Robert in other leagues and things like that. So I don't know how he is with this, but I've been hearing some good things about him. So I know he's gonna put up a good fight.
Well, you just kind of spoiled your brand new feature competitor along with it, so it's okay. And basically, let me introduce the new competitor. Not only made his debut in sports ball, but debut in the debate leagues in general in TMG. We Mr. Walbert Castner. How you doing, Robert?
I'm doing well. That was quite a lovely introduction from both of you, Dan especially. I didn't know much about Dan. Did a little bit of reconnaissance, not like it's going to mean anything for this. I did not know he had played in this before. So this is my first time debating. I watched a lot of debates, and I felt like, I can make better arguments in a lot of cases. That's my arrogance popping up. And I've been watching sports my whole life, so I'm really looking forward to seeing how this goes.
All right, and I can't wait indeed. And let me see. I think you wear like a Pirates shirt if you're wearing Robert.
Yep, from the 412 repping. I got Steelers hat, all black. So that's going to come up a little bit here in the intros, probably.
All right, we'll see about that.
That's where I'm from.
Okay, all right. Before we start the match, let's introduce the judges. Going to help me judge throughout this match. Let me introduce the fellow judges. Is going to help me endure for this matchup here tonight. We got a friendly face around many debate leagues in general. Friends throughout the fan leagues. Mr. Potsman himself, Kevin Pos. How you doing?
Doing well. Thanks for having me, Jonathan. Looking forward to a good matchup. Had a pretty decent matchup last night, so just looking forward to what these guys have to say.
All right. And also helping us along with both of us, we got Mr. JB3. How you doing, JB3?
I'm doing great. I'm ready to hear some debates. I used to, when I worked at the factories or even when I was in school, you always hear people, debate about sports. And it could be you compete or not compete, or even if you just participate in them. But I did a lot of listening. So I have a lot of experience hearing people get really, really angry over sports. So all I'm going to say to you two is I'm glad to see that you're debating again for one of you and for the first time the other. And bring it.
All right. Great indeed. And basically, before we start the match, I'm going to set some of the ground rules of Sports Brawl or any debate leagues in general. Both of you guys have 1-minute extensions during the 4 main rounds if you're willing to use it. You can only use it for your opening or your closing arguments if you're willing to use it. The opening debates are going to be 90 seconds for opening, 5 minutes for the main debate, and 60 seconds on your closing. So, with that out of the way, let's get through this. All right, let's go into question number 1 in the world of the NFL. And currently, the NFL itself is slowly to get back right here during training camp, called the pandemic stuff. And basically, around that time, we just saw a couple months back the virtual NFL draft. We addressed about some promising rookies coming out to the draft in 2020. So I figured let's want to bring this question up. And question number 1 is this: Who will be the most impactful NFL rookie in 2020? So this will be the strength of Robert, and we'll start with him for his selection.
All right. So when I think about impact, I don't believe that it's really relevant when it comes to truly bad or truly good teams. If you're too bad, then your team's not really going anywhere. Or if you're too good, what rookie is the impact really going to have on the infrastructure and the winning contribution? So I think you need to find someone as a team and as a person in the middle, a team that's close that could stand to have one person push them to another level. So in this case, my pick for most impactful rookie is Isaiah Simmons, the linebacker from Clemson, who got drafted 8th overall by the Arizona Cardinals. The Cardinals were 5-10-1 last year, but they were in 6 games, they lost within 2 scores or less. And with better luck, they could have got to 500 or better, and who knows? So they could have even vied for the playoffs. And the impact to help push them over the edge really would be on more of the defensive end, because that's where they had the problems. My opponent picked someone who's going to be like, the hype on him is incredible, and he had a good week this week because he's going to be the projected starter. But just because he's the starter on a team that's really inclined for offense, it doesn't mean that he's going to be very impactful, because his team that he is going to was already great and they already won. So how much more impact can this person really have, honestly? So again, Isaiah Simmons, linebacker, Arizona. That's my pick.
All right. On the timer, Isaiah Simmons of the Arizona Cardinals by Robert's selection. I'm going to go up with Dan for his selection.
Yeah, my selection is Clyde Edwards-Helaire of the Kansas City Chiefs. He played for the national champion LSU Tigers last year. He was a major contributor with them, and then he comes to the Kansas City Chiefs. As my opponent said, he's a projected starter. There's some videos that came out this week that he's practicing. But he also did a lot of work in the offseason with Mahomes, working on timing and so forth like that. And I'll tell you, when you have an offense like the Chiefs that they're going to pass a lot, people are going to forget about the running game. And this is where Clyde Edwards-Helaire is going to just break out like a star from a rookie point of view, because people aren't going to think of him. And so he's going to get the ball, and he's going to be running all over the field when he gets the ball. In this kind of offense that the Chiefs have, it's like a all over the place offense. It's up and down the field, left and right. I mean, if you've seen how the Chiefs play, it's just they want to score as quick as they can, whether they can hand it off the running back in draws or give it to him in the wheel route out on the flat in little pass patterns or whatever. He's going to be put out in the middle of and just go with it. And I mean, Cardinals, I don't think too many people are looking to see the Cardinals do that good. So I don't see any players on their team going to be breakout stars.
Time. All right. 2 very interesting picks for both our competitors right here with Isaiah Simmons and Clyde Edwards. Keep forgetting his last name.
Helaire.
Okay. Thank you. Just wanted to make sure I got it right. All right. It's just a free lesson. All right. 2 very interesting selections. I'm going to start with the 5-minute timer. Timer will begins with when you begin talking.
Okay, Dan, can I ask a question? And you can go head off for a little bit. For a team that finished 12-4, won the division, won the Super Bowl, had an offensive DVOA of 3 last year, and scored 39 points per game in the playoffs, what is it that Clyde Edwards-Helaire can do to really provide an impact for the team?
Well, one of the things that they lacked in their great offense is a running game. This guy, you're going to be able to add him to the running game, and he's going to be able to get draws and handoffs because people aren't going to expect it because they're going to be pass blocking. He's going to go down the field 30, 40 yards. He's going to get out in the wheel routes. He's going to get out in the flat. They're going to throw it to him, screen passes and stuff like that. This is the kind of guy that the Chiefs are looking for to add that extra oomph for their offense, even though they were so great and they won the Super Bowl and they were so offensively prolific last year.
So just to be clear, because usually when you're a rookie running back, the impact that you really have, especially in terms of awards and what it is you do for team impact, is usually less unless you're Alvin Kamara. So are you going to say that Clyde Edwards-Helaire is going to have an Alvin Kamara-like season for the team?
I think he's going to be like, what's the guy from Penn State that went to the Giants?
Saquon Barkley.
Yeah, he's going to have a season like that. That's what he's going to be a star type of player because they're going to be expecting them to throw the ball. And he's going to be
Mahomes got $450 million. I think they're expecting to throw the ball.
They're going to put defenses, their dime and nickel packages. They're going to try to prevent the pass. And what's going to happen is going to open up the running game. It's going to open up screen passes, wheel routes, draw.
I understand that, and that's great and everything. But Damian Williams, he who should not be named because he's not going to be playing in the season anymore. The guy who I think should have been the MVP of the Super Bowl. I know that's somewhat controversial. What is it more that Clyde Edwards-Helaire does over Damian Williams? And Damian Williams was going to be the starter before he opted out. What more can he do other than what Damian Williams did last year?
Younger guys, they have more durability because they're younger. They have more energy about them. Older guys, they're going to wear down. And if you look at the last 20 years in the running back position, it's kind of a position that's gone by the way of the dodo bird in NFL offenses. So the younger, the faster, the more durable guys, those are the guys that they want. This kid's going to be a star next year for the Chiefs.
Speaking of stars, I think Isaiah Simmons is going to be a star for Arizona. They were shocked and thrilled that he lasted till 8. They assumed he was going to be the second defensive player off the board behind Chase Young. And Chase Young and Jeff Okudah, so sorry to say, they ain't going to do much for Washington professional football team and the Lions. So I went with a dude who actually looks like he could impact a defense that was 28th in scoring, was last in yards per game, was the worst tight end coverage team in Arizona. When you had a tight end in fantasy, you were hoping that you were going against the Cardinals that day. Look at TJ Hawkinson, look at anybody who put up numbers last year.
Well, and I think he's been a great tight end. I think he's going to do great against the Cardinals. Yeah. The Seahawks, I think they got a great tight end. The Rams, they got a great offense. So I know the Cardinals are going to have their problems playing against them 3 teams. And you're going against a defensive guy. You're picking a defensive guy.
Yeah,
it's a great guy for the Cardinals to pick. I don't think he's going to have that big of an impact on the season.
Well, I mean, a lot of people are thinking that DeAndre Hopkins is going to have the big impact because of that trade. But if you look at the numbers last year, the Cardinals offense was not, I mean, they were terrible in terms of efficiency, but their DVOA in offense was 13. So they were middling. So I think personally, the idea of having Kyler in the system for another year with Kingsbury really speaks more to how it is that they're going to be more offensively minded than having DeAndre Hopkins. But being 23rd in defensive DVOA and being that close in so many close games, I mean, they had San Francisco to the wire twice. And it was just because they cannot protect against guys like Kittle. And Kittle's amazing, but I think having a dude who used to play safety in Clemson, moved over to linebacker, was improving his overall take and takeover, turnovers and sacks, is someone who could help push them over the top more so than someone like Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who's just, to me, like icing on a cake. He's like a cherry on the top of the sundae.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what. The Cardinals definitely needed a defensive guy. That's no question. But I think when you're the best and you can add a weapon like Helaire, that's just even going to make the Chiefs even better.
Time. All right, time. 2 very good arguments with both of you, and surprisingly, it's more a little durability than I anticipated. So that's a very good for both of you. All right. Since Robert started off first, we're going to start off with Dan for his closing 60 seconds will begin where you begin talking, Dan.
Yeah, I mean, the Chiefs won the Super Bowl. There's no doubt. Everybody knows they're great. They're the best team in football. But when you can add a weapon like Helaire, who you can give draws to because everybody's going to be out in covers, nickel and dime covers, then you give him screens and he can run for 40, 50, 60-yard touchdowns. You can put him out in the wheel route. You throw a little pass to him out in the wheel route, run around. I mean, this guy is so fast and he's so durable and so young. He's going to just be ready to go. He's going to have he's going to be like a bunch of 5-hour energies all built up in one. This guy wants to succeed. He wants to get out there and be a star. And the Chiefs needed a running back that can really add to all their other prolific weapons that they have in their offense. And he did a lot of work in the offseason with Mahomes, and they've been showing some videos of him. This kid's going to be ready to go. Simmons, Cardinals needed him, but he's not going to make that big of an impact.
All right. Time. All right. Very good. 60-second closing on Dan's part. Let's go on to Robert for his 60-second closing. Timer begins when you begin talking.
Hype Edwards-Helaire or Clyde Edwards-Helaire is going to be the talk of the town in fantasy. But a good fantasy player or a great fantasy player does not an impact make in the real NFL. I'm talking about someone in Isaiah Simmons who was a unanimous All-American, ACC Defensive Player of the Year, won the Butkus Award, was a catalyst for a team that went to the championship twice, won it once. I know Trevor Lawrence gets all the hype, but he was someone who really helped crystallize what it is that the Clemson defense could do. 6'4", 238, 4.39 40 is there so that he can contribute to turnovers and to helping with coverage. And that's exactly what he's going to do for a team that's on the rise in a tough division. I think they could go ahead and take over from the Rams because the Rams, I think, are going to take a step back. So they could be right there as they sort of were in the games that they had last year to potentially contend for a playoff spot. Defensive players as rookies, I think, make more impact than offensive rookies unless you're a quarterback a la RG3 Vince Young.
Time. All right. Very good closing on Robert. And quick, give me a thumbs up if one of you are ready.
Good.
All right. Here. Still waiting for GD3. Still thinking about it. All right. Okay, what are we waiting on him? I have my thoughts ready to go, so I'm going to start out with this. I think both of your arguments are very good, great ways to describe your rookie. Might have a sort of a potential, make more impactful during their rookie years. And Dan, I do love you pointed out that maybe more is a good alternative to maybe possibly like elevate the Chiefs' offense as great as it is currently right now, even before they draft Clyde. Robert, I think you pointed out some great accolades for Isaiah Simmons. I think you just would put up great coming out of college, Clemson, along with it might help the needs of the defense. But I think you kind of missed something. Maybe during your 5-minute argument, I was kind of waiting for you kind of pointed out maybe little not Dan's point out for a bit. Then why is like if you put any running back in there with that Chiefs offense, you make them kind of look good. And I assume it's in there. You're not going to sort of mean anything along with it. I was kind of waiting for it throughout that portion of the argument to point that out. And for me gets the point, I will give my point to Dan. So that Dan gets the first point. Going to hand off to Kevin for his thoughts on the argument and who gets the point and why.
I think Dan made some really good points about how Helaire is already a projected starter. We're seeing video of that, how he's going to complement Mahomes. He's right about the running back has gone by the wayside, and it's all about the pass game nowadays. So my thing is, I just wonder how long teams will ignore him. And look away from him. Robert really came with some good stats. With the Arizona's defensive problems in 2019, Isaiah Simmons could solve those, bring them to a 500 team. He brought up the DVOA, brought up Simmons's accolades. So just barely, and really, it sold me in the closing. My point goes to Robert.
All right. It's a 1-1 tie. Okay, JB3, you're basically the deciding factor. Who will get the point for round one?
First off, I just want to say that that was a really, really good first question, first round. I really it was very close. I had to really think about it because it was that close. Robert, this is your very first debate. Very interesting tactics that I see with the way you presented your argument. I liked it. I thought your argument was a good argument. I would have to agree with Jonathan when it comes to the debate part. I think that you got kind of lost on, in the beginning at least, just asking questions instead of, and I know where you were getting at in the beginning. I think it just more time went by focusing on Dan's pick and then with the closing, you know, you guys both had really, really good closings. And with everything, I mean, I'm talking as far as who makes the most impact. I mean, you both made a really, really good argument, but I thought that during the debate round, Dan took over a little bit more, which gave him the edge. So I give him a point to Dan, but it was, I mean, that was really close.
All right. With that, Dan takes over round one with the first point. And basically, let's go into round number two. Round number two is going to the world of Major League Baseball. And also another sport right here is coming back right here in Major League Baseball during this crazy time. So basically, bring out this age-old question of baseball is this. Which Major League Baseball team has the best home field advantage? So this is a strength picked by Dan. And Dan, going to start with him for his selection.
All right, so I went with Fenway Park, the venerable ballpark from Boston, Massachusetts. You see this hat here, not because I'm a fan of the Boston Red Sox, but because Fenway Park is an absolute home field advantage when the Red Sox have the team in place to use their advantage, which they've done 4 times in the last 15 years, 4 World Series in the last 15 years. And there are so many nooks and crannies at Fenway Park. It is such a defensive place, like the 300-foot wall in left field. I've watched so many guys get caught up in that wall, and then the ball goes right over their head, run, and then guys are running around the bases like crazy because they don't know how to defend the green monster in left field at Fenway Park. Then we go a little bit to center. In right field, we have the Bermuda Triangle, 410 feet out. There's a little nook in center and in right field where if the ball gets caught in there, it could wriggle around. That thing could get out and get away from you, and you can get caught up, and that could turn into doubles and triples. Then there's the little foul thing right above it. So just to the right of it is a home run. Just to the left of it, it's a home run. Just to the right of it is foul territory. So you could lose something by just inches, be a home run, or by inches the other direction, be a foul ball. And one of my favorite parts about Fenway Park that I love is if you're a pull hitter, pulling to the right, you got little old pesky pole out there sitting there waiting for those hook home runs to go around pesky pole. Easily the best home field advantage in baseball.
Time. All right. Dan's very passionate pick for Fenway Park, home of the Boston Red Sox. And really good selection. Let's go with Roberts for his selection.
Dan did have a very passionate pick, and I could feel it. My passion goes the other way because I hate to admit anything good for my intended team and their ballpark as a Pirates fan, but the best home field advantage belongs to the St. Louis Cardinals. Now, for an anecdote, personal anecdote, back in 2013, when the Pirates played the Cardinals in the NLDS and had won games 2 and 3, I prayed to the baseball gods that Pittsburgh would end it in 4 because I had no faith that they could go back to Busch Stadium in Game 5, even after winning a game there with Garrett Cole, who had won Game 2 as the starter, and get out with a win because of the maddening difficulty of playing there. With the raucous fans, they're always near the top in terms of attendance at Busch Stadium. With the level of sustained success since it's been in existence, they've won 2 World Series, including the year of new Busch Stadium's inauguration and in 2011. Now that St. Louis is down a football team, there really isn't a whole lot of cards to play, pun intended, as reference to what people can go to in St. Louis. So it feeds heavily that community into baseball as a big draw. And just recently, Blues have had some success, but St. Louis is the hallmark there, the Cardinals. And since from when new Busch Stadium happened till now, they have a more sustained level of success than Fenway.
All right. 2 very good selection for Busch Stadium versus Fenway Park. 2 of the acclaimed ballparks in baseball itself, and a passionate fan base indeed. So let's get started with the 5-minute debate. The debate begins with when you begins talking.
Okay,
Well,
I'm going to say...
I want to take this one first, Robert. Look, you want to talk about playoffs and so forth? How about this? the Boston Red Sox played the St. Louis Cardinals twice in the World Series. What did we do? We swept them. They went to St. Louis.
So
they went to their stadium, and they beat them in their own stadium. So what kind of a home field advantage is that?
Dan, point of order, one of those was not at New Busch Stadium. That was in 04, so that really doesn't count.
Well,
and secondly, in the time since New Busch Stadium has existed, actually the Cardinals have more playoff wins with more playoff attendance than the Red Sox. And not to mention the fact that back in 2018, we have a very big red mark on the ledger. So all the numbers from 2018, as far as I'm concerned, cancel out because they cheated.
Well, you say whatever you want about cheating. It has nothing to do with the home field advantage. First of all, almost 2 decades of sold-out fans at Fenway Park. Almost 2.
The Cardinals have had the same thing too. They've been selling out. And actually, if you look at the time frame, because I have the numbers for this since 2006 till now, the Busch Stadium has averaged the 3rd spot in attendance, and the Red Sox have averaged 8th. And since that time,
it's a smaller park. You only
it's a small
37 to 42,000.
Fenway lives on its nostalgia. That's great. But New Busch Stadium, it offers more fans. It's averaged more fans per year. Actually, in the time frame from then, the St. Louis Cardinals have only had 1 losing season at Busch Stadium. The Red Sox have had 3 losing seasons. And in the time when the Red Sox won
going to the games.
And the fans keep going to the games. That's great, but you mentioned before in the argument that they went to St. Louis and they beat them. So you're doubling up on arguments. I think you're double dipping. It's about fans, but it's also about the records too.
How about the memories of Fenway Park? Him waving it over, getting it over there. Those memories. And how about
nostalgia and memories do not a home field advantage make.
Hitting the game-winning home run over right field wall, and we beat the Yankees, and we keep going, and then we won 8 consecutive that year. But then how about the little nooks and crannies of Fenway? I think on the left field line, and you hit that little nook out in third base line, it can jigger off into center field, and you can be running forever there. Then you got if you look at the wide right field, where if you're not a good defender, that thing could get around there. You can be running forever. I mean, Dan,
if you look at the numbers, Fenway averages out for park factors as a hitter's ballpark more often than not. In that time frame I'm talking, since New Busch Stadium, it averages over 1 in park factors, which means it's good for hitters. There's only one time it didn't.
Ballpark. But St. Louis is a cookie cutter ballpark.
No, it's not a cookie cutter bar. It's up. It is near the bottom third for pitchers' parks, and it is harder to build a roster to match with a pitcher's park than it is with a hitter's park. Anybody can go and make a lineup of nice right-handed hitters that can take advantage of hitting off the wall, regardless of how they are in defense.
Thanks for saying that. Yeah,
that's what I'm saying. That's my argument, though. You can build a lineup to take advantage of that.
Around pesky pole. We'll pull it to right field around pesky pole, or we'll pepper that wall, get them doubles. What do you think Wade Boggs had? 7 batting championships.
That's wonderful for Wade Boggs, and he was good when he went to the Yankees, and he was decent when he went to Tampa Bay. Not to mention you have a really short porch in left that people who are good at pulling the ball as left-handers can take advantage of the short porch there.
Oh, yeah. But our own players can do it too.
When you look at Busch Stadium, it's always favorable. Busch Stadium is always favorable for park factors, for hits, home runs, walks, and runs for pitchers. And that's why they've been able to take advantage of it for so long.
He wasn't juicing. How about all those damn...
Again, Dan, that doesn't matter because that happened at old Busch Stadium. And even then, the wins and the park factors and the attendance still under old Busch Stadium were still better there than they are at Fenway. I mean, if you look at the average from 06 till now, the Cards have actually averaged 1 more regular season win at New Busch Stadium than the Red Sox have at Fenway. So the numbers from regular season to playoff wins, the only thing you have is titles necessarily from 3 to 2, and one of those titles is in circumspect. We have to question it because it was done so in the era of cheating. So really, you could look at titles as being even as well. So if you look at all the numbers, if you look at attendance and wins and all of that coming together, St. Louis, New Busch Stadium has the advantage over Fenway.
Yeah, well, you could do it both ways in Fenway. You could play defense and have a great defensive ballpark, or you can have a hitter's ballpark. We've done it both ways. We won both series.
Wow. Whew. I thought that maybe the first question is going to be more insightful, but this one might take the cake for me on that. So, yeah. And I'll just say this: both of you love baseball so much. So, okay, all right. Since we start with Dan first right here, let's go out with Robert for his closing. 60 seconds will begin when you begin talking.
I do not deny that Boston has some oddities in reference to its stadium. But the biggest thing that it has is the Green Monster. And if you can create a situation in a lineup with right-handed hitters, you could take advantage of that. If you have a situation where you can build it with left-handed hitters, you can take advantage of the right field short porch. So really, as a hitter's ballpark, which the numbers suggest, it is much easier to take advantage of Fenway than it is to take advantage of Busch Stadium. And I've already stated the numbers. The Cardinals have been relatively more successful both in the playoffs and in the regular season. They draw more fans. It's a newer stadium and it's larger, but you have to take into account how it is that they do in terms of performance and how it is they do in fan reaction, because if you have more fans, it's more raucous. It speaks to how it is that they can draw opposing teams off their game. So St. Louis, even though I hate them, have the best home field advantage. I never want to play there as a fan of my team, and nobody should want to play there either.
Okay, time. Very, very interesting cousin there. Well, let's just say about that right here. Let's go out with Dan for his closing. Your 60 seconds will begin when you begin talking.
When you talk about home field advantage, you talk about fans. Red Sox have had almost 2 decades of sold-out fans, winning seasons or not winning seasons. We have some of the most great little nooks and crannies and oddities, like you said, Robert. Pesky pole. If you're a right hand, you can hit it around get that little short homer around pesky pole. But if you're a defender, you don't want to hit it to right field and get it in play because that's expansive out there. But then you have the Bermuda Triangle in center and right. That's if you hit it out there, that could be think it bounce off the wall, but if you hit it by that foul line, it could be left. It's a home run, right? It's a foul ball, and you're like, dang, I hit it so far, but it's a wasted swing. You got the Fenway. I mean, the Green Monster is a advantage to the defender, and our offense uses it because they're so good at peppering off the wall, getting doubles. So there's so many different things that we could do. Hitters are great at it, and defenders
Time.
love it.
Okay. This is going to be very interesting kind of for the judges' part. So, gonna start up. I got mine ready to go, and gonna start out with Kevin to start off this. And who gets the point in your opinion, and why?
This is obviously a very passionate argument. I can see where both have a lot of points, great points that were made. Robert came in saying, the fans, the raucous fans, the tops in attendance annually. The rebuttal of nostalgia and memories do not equal home field advantage. I think that was a good point. But when you made the point about, building the lineup around the short right field porch and the monster, Dan made a good rebuttal on that as well to say, if you're not hitting home runs, then that ball could literally go anywhere. And that's a defender's nightmare. The 20 years of sellouts, the Green Monster, the triangle, the pesky pole, I have to give this one to Dan.
Okay. Dan gets the first point. Let's go ahead and head out with JB3 for his thoughts on the argument itself and who gets the point and why.
Again, yeah, I agree with Kevin. Very passionate arguments. I thought that one argument was it started to get more opinion based as far as like how much they liked the stadium versus reasons, like factual reasons. For me, it came down to the one who was just laying out the facts of how many, the playoff wins, the success, the titles. the numbers, and then the whole living on nostalgia thing kind of won it for me too. So I actually went for Robert on this one. I thought that he got that one.
Okay, so it's a tie again. You made my job more harder than it is. So thanks, guys. For me, it's a very good back and forth on both of you guys, and I think both of you put up why your stadiums are the best home field advantage. I thought both of you did. It was beautiful to argue and passionate about that. But I think in the end of the day, I think during the arguments themselves, I think the person that really gets the reason why is bigger than the home field advantage themselves and more actually. And I will get my point to Robert because he pointed out that why the Cardinals around that point there was more why was it a little bit sorry why the Cardinals basically have more home field advantage and basically like the crowd noises around fans on the field. I think that's the part that kind of sort of sway me. And Dan, you pull up a great argument with Fenway Park along with it. It get very close, but I had to get to Robert just for the slice of margins. So it's very close. And I'll just say that right now. It's a very close argument to point right here. With that, and we got a tie game 1-1. So it's everybody's game right now. And basically, let's go into round number 3 in the world of the NBA. We're starting right now is in the bar and on Disney Orlando, Florida. So basically, what this question brings is this. Who is the best point guard in the NBA right now? So this is another selection by Robert. So we'll start with him for his selection.
So this argument I'm going to make is one of the most clearly semantic-based arguments that I can have, because otherwise my opponent, with regards to ability and resume, his argument would probably be almost unimpeachable. However, considering we're looking at best NBA point guard right now, Dame Dollar make you holla. Since he's come to the league, Damian Lillard in 2012 from Weber State, he's been undervalued, underappreciated. And all he's done is take the mantle for Portland, not only from Brandon Roy and LaMarcus Aldridge at the time, but from Clyde Drexler as the second best Blazer in history, maybe the best, depending on how you feel about the Bill Walton era. Dame was unanimous Rookie of the Year, 5-time All-Star, which is tied for the most in Blazers history. And he's risen through the ranks as being one of the most dangerous, clutch, and regarded point guards and players in the West, especially, but in the NBA overall. Steadily, his stats, play, results in the playoff, recognition have risen to the point where he's at the top of this point guard mountain gauntlet. And if you look at just what's happened in the last couple of days since the restart, Dame's basically picked up right where he left off. 2 very close games. In the game they just had where they lost against the Celtics, he went 30-16. He's been steadily getting better. My opponent's pick hasn't really played in a full season, and the last time he did, there was bouts of unsuccess. So Dame Lillard's one.
All right. Very good choice for Robert's right here. Let's go to Dan's pick for his selection.
All right, my selection is Steph Curry out of Davidson. He plays for the Golden State Warriors. This guy has made more threes than anybody in the history of the NBA out of the point guard position, which isn't technically a shooting guard position. He's supposed to run the offense, yet he has made more threes than anybody. Career percentage of all-time threes made. Single season for threes made. Also, he's won MVPs in multiple championships. Damian Lillard is a good player, and he helps their team. But when you think about it, he hasn't won anything. The Portland Trailblazers have been mired in maybe 4th, 5th in their league, usually 6th maybe in their league. Usually they make the playoffs and maybe they get knocked out 2nd, 3rd round, whatever. Steph Curry has helped his team, a team that nobody's basically talked about for decades, win championships, 3 or 4 championships. and offensively, he's an absolute star.
Time. All right. Two very good picks with Steph Curry and Damian Lillard. Two very good players that I enjoy to watch every time I watch through an NBA throughout the channels. Let's start with the 5-minute debate with when you begins talking.
Okay, Dan. So just this year, and again, the question is best NBA point guard right now. Just this year, before everything went to crap because of COVID-19, Dame was top 5 overall in points, 3-pointers made, number 1 in offensive box plus minus, offensive win shares, top 10 in VORP, win shares per 48. Steph has played 1 game since Halloween, and it just so happens that when Kevin Durant left and he got that injury, we do not see Golden State in the bubble because they were so very, very terrible. I cannot deny that he was good, but since that unanimous MVP, great. I can't deny that he's been great. But since that unanimous MVP year, which was 4 years ago now, his numbers have been in a somewhat steady decline, while Dame's have gone up.
Well,
and a lot of this
injury just because you have an injury, it doesn't take away all your accomplishments and all the things that you have done.
I don't disagree with that.
And you can't debate what somebody has done. Numbers don't lie.
I just gave you a bunch of numbers that say Dame hasn't lied, that doesn't lie against Dame. Those are all fantastic numbers about him right now.
Because this is an anomaly of a year. You can't.
This is before the anomaly of the year, Dan. I'm not looking at it right now. I'm not looking at what's happening right now. I'm looking at what happened in the season leading up to this point. And again, Steph had a lot of success, but a lot of his success was bred from having Steve Kerr as a coach, getting to play with Draymond Green, getting to play with Klay Thompson, getting to play with Durant.
Is that his fault that he had good teammates and a good coach?
No, but I think it highlights more to the fact that Dame Lillard has dragged a team like Portland to be relevant, and they did just make the Western Conference Finals last year.
Yeah, well, that is all well and good. But when people think of greatness, they think of championships, and they think of stats like he's got the most threes in a season, the most 3 percentage of all time, MVP. Lillard can't even hold a candle to that.
Yes, he can this year, and he's going to continue to do so. And he's going to do the best that he's ever done if he can will the Blazers in the playoffs, which is a legitimate thing. Should Dame have to feel bad because he didn't get to play with a Hall of Fame coach and 3 Hall of Fame players? No, he said.
Does that make Michael Jordan bad because he played with great players?
No,
and a great coach
it doesn't make him bad. But you also have to think about people who were great in that era. Should we feel bad? Like, should we deny the fact that Charles Barkley, Patrick Ewing, Karl Malone, John Stockton were all great? No. And there were points, and you could have said it when Jordan retired, that there were players who were better than Jordan at that time because he was off playing baseball. Steph, unfortunately, had the injury, and his team suffered, and Dame was able to go to another level, and he continues to go to another level. So looking at it right now,
he still hasn't reached the level of Steph Curry.
That's great. Back from 2 years ago, which is the last time they won a title. If you look at playoff success, especially in terms of numbers, I would rather have Dame's numbers any day of the week than Steph's playoff numbers. Steph was assisted a lot, and frankly, a lot of those titles were helped by guys like Klay Thompson saving them from a 3-1 hole against Oklahoma City and things like that. And Durant winning.
Sometimes people forget about all the things that go along to make you, and why Larry Bird had all these great guys with them, and it turned out they won a bunch of championships. Magic Johnson, Michael Jordan. The great players, they have coaches, they have players, but then they go out and do what they do. Michael did what he did. Larry did what he did. Steph does what he does. That's why he's the greatest right now, and he's continuing.
No, he was the greatest 2-3 years ago, but not right now.
Can't even hold a candle to the guy.
Yes, he can. His numbers, actually speaking in terms of like 3-point percentage and deep threes, are very much in line with Steph's. He just doesn't have the full history because Steph's been playing a little bit longer and has played in a better system for him. And all
Portland's
those,
got a history of being a team that's had some good years over the years. Which
they just went to the Western Conference Finals.
The Warriors. When the hell have you ever heard of the Warriors until Steph got there? Back.
No, they had the Run TMC.
They had the logo. They had
the Run TMC era, and they had that year in 2007 where they upset the Dallas Mavericks. They've had good years. They've had good teams. They had Don Nelson coaching. It's all been great.
Nobody saw Steph doing this. Nobody saw him coming out of Davidson being.
Yes, they did. Yes, he took that. He took the 2008 NCAA tournament by storm. He almost beat Kansas by himself in the Elite Eight. Yes, they did see him. People like David Kahn in Minnesota made a terrible mistake not drafting him. That's their fault, not Dame's fault, because Dame's the best right now.
Time. Easy, guys. Whew. Okay. I'm like a referee to try to cool out the sort of scuffling in a basketball court. So I just wanted to say something out before things got out of hand. All right. Let's go into the closings. Set the timer back. All right. Let's go with Dan first for his 60-second closing. Timer will begin when you begin talking.
All right, so number one, the best three-point percentage of all time, Steph Curry. The most threes in a single season, Steph Curry. MVP, Steph Curry. Championships, multiple championships, 3 or 4 championships. Damian Lillard, mired in Portland. Nobody really cares because he hasn't done anything. He might be a good player for that team, but overall, the team's not that good. A player makes the team better, and he just is a guy that is a good player on a mediocre team. They may have won a couple series last year, but Steph Curry's been doing it more consistently for years and years. He took a team that basically out of the blue, the Warriors. I mean, nobody had been talking about the Golden State Warriors for decades since the logo there. He came out of Davidson. He was a surprise. He elevated that team. He was a leader from the point guard position, one of the most best scorers in the league the last however many years.
Time. Okay. Good closing on Dan. Let's go into our for his closing.
Can I use my extension, my 1 minute extension?
All right. He's going to use his 1 minute extension for your closing. All right. Okay. Got it set up. Timer will begin with your 1 minute extension where you begin talking.
So Dan wanted me to be corrected when I said Steph's been a good player when he should be a great player. And that's true. He was a great player back when he was playing, which has not been recently. And in reference to that, Dame has not been just a good player. He's been a great player. Before coronavirus had hit this year, he was in the middle of his best season for points, assists, field goals made and attempted, three-pointers made and attempted, three-point percentage, free throws attempted. He's just been better in all of these things. Even after the season 2 years ago, when he was first team All-NBA and he was fourth in MVP. And of course, when you're in Portland and you're not winning 70 games, then you're going to have an issue with trying to be the real MVP. So after last season, when he took Portland to the conference finals, he was second team All-NBA, sixth in MVP voting. From those last 2 years, he's been better in all those numbers. All the advanced statistics say it. All the general statistics say it. And speaking of playoff success, it's not like he only had one good year. If he gets the Blazers into the playoffs this year, his MVP stock will rise. His playoff performance, he and Michael Jordan, the one that Dan talked about, that we shouldn't feel bad about Michael Jordan having great players, only Damian Lillard and Michael Jordan have had 2 series-winning buzzer beaters to completely wipe out a series in NBA history. He did it against Houston, and he did it against Russell Westbrook and Paul George, waving bye-bye to them, both in first-round series, but still in the playoffs. Dame, all the numbers say it, has just been better. He's actually playing this year. He can get his team into the playoffs, and he hasn't had all the advantages in terms of coaching and teammates that Steph has, but it doesn't diminish what Dame has done and is going to continue to do.
Time. All right. Good uses on the 1 minute extension. Let's go into our fellow judges right here to figure out this. right here. All right. Let's see if our judges are ready to go. All right. Thumbs up for JV3. All right. Got him up for Kevin. All right. All right. Very good closings indeed. Let's go ahead with JB3 to start this off. And who gets the point in your eyes and why?
So again, both really brought the arguments. Very different levels to their choices. One was someone a rising star. One was an established star who, I guess, just recently or in the recent past hasn't had too much because of injury. As far as the debate goes, I had to give my point to the person. There was, like I said, both brought the arguments, but there was one really, really big point that was brought up, and that was that Dillard's just not on Steph Curry's level, and all of the things that Steph Curry has done has made him an established star, and it has put him there, just like Dan was saying. So again, a close argument, but I ended up giving my point to Dan just because, that big point really, really brought him over the edge.
Okay, got the first point to Dan. Let's go ahead up to me first and me second, actually. Very good arguments. I'm actually gonna defer. I'm actually gonna give my point to Robert because he did point out some counters and some points that, like, hold on, sorry, just off my rest of mind. Damian Lillard around that point kind of helped elevate this third. Well, not help elevate the team, but he put some good examples of why Damian Lillard is consistently currently right now the last couple months, even before all the stuff with COVID. He was always been that elite player around that point or at that time. So I think he put out some good here, and also good a little knock on Dan for Steph for had been sort of been there since after Halloween, and basically all that's up with the injury. So I'm actually giving my point to Robert. So it's basically a 1-1 tie. Kevin, you're personally the deciding factor. Who will get the point?
Yeah, this was kind of an easier one for me to pick. I looked at the question. It does say right now. If this was a debate 2 or 3 years ago, then I definitely would have gone a different direction. Dan brought up some good points, about Steph Curry and how Davidson is a small school. I went to Georgia Southern myself, so I got to see him in person play plenty of times. The dude is unbelievable. That's not any debate there. But like Robert started off saying, this is going to be based on semantics right now. And Lillard, bringing up all his current stats, even in the most recent the Celtics game, 30 and 16. It makes me think. He rebutted saying that, like you said, Jonathan, about the injury to Curry. He hasn't been the same since. And he also Lillard doesn't have as many advantages around him as Curry, like having a Kerr as the coach and Green and Klay Thompson. So my point's going to go to Robert.
All right, with that, Robert gets round 3. Right now is 2-1 Robert. So basically, we're going into round number 4, which I'm very excited about this round number 4 question. So this is maybe very crucial to Dan right here. He needs to get this point to force a speed round right here to tie it up. And basically, I brought a very interesting question for comparison in the world of the NCAA. And he bit the world of the NCAA football. And basically, I brought up an interesting question because is this. We all know some great college coaches. It's all great college coach in the pros. College and the NCAA, and also transfer over to the pros, or should say the NFL. Basically, some great examples like Jimmy Johnson, Pete Carroll, and even other coaches successfully well But unfortunately, there are some coaches who tried to do that, but didn't do so hot with it. So I brought a very interesting question for this panel is this. What head coach that's successful in college but failed to transfer in the NFL? So this is Dan's category of choice. We'll start with him for his selection.
So, when you think about college coaches going to the NFL, I mean, to me, this is such an obvious choice because before this gentleman went to the NFL, he won a national championship at LSU. And then he goes to the NFL to coach the Miami Dolphins, and he's absolutely awful. It's like he forgot all how to coach, or the general managers or whatever. They're not going to put a team around this guy. Then he goes back to college, and he wins a bunch of more national championships at Alabama. So we obviously know Nick Saban is a great college coach, and he couldn't coach his way out of a paper bag in the NFL. Maybe it's the personalities of dealing with NFL players. Maybe it's dealing with GMs and owners, and I don't know what you want to say. But the guy can go into a house and convince parents and kids to come to LSU and Alabama, and he does it over and over and over again, and he wins national championships over and over again. Maybe it's a different game for him.
All right. Dan's selection of Nick Saban coaching the Miami Dolphins. Let's go into Robert for his selection.
So to get it out of the way, my counterpart's pick of Nick Saban has been more successful in terms of titles in college than my pick. But there are circumstances we'll get into beyond a bit of coaching that speaks to that. The old ball coach, Steve Spurrier, is the best choice to straddle both lines between successful coach in college and awful coach in the NFL. Because his numbers in the college regular season and aren't necessarily as impressive. But if you note, he still has won a title. He got to another title. He won a bunch of SEC titles, was coach of the year a bunch of times. And he thought that that would translate to the NFL by getting the largest contract ever in NFL history at the time, trying to bring the fun and gun offense to the league to take it by storm. As it turns out, he was not the right man for that job. And he only had 2 terrible seasons in Washington in the bottom half of all offensive categories, his strength, where Nick Saban actually was able to produce a good defense in Miami. After that, he went back to college, proceeded to have a bounce back at a second-tier SEC school. Steve Spurrier is the best choice as successful college coach, an absolutely horrendous NFL coach.
Time. All right. You got the ball coach Steve Spurrier for the Washington, and I know that very dearly personally, but I'm not going to know that part. Let's go into the 5 minutes. We'll set this up. Let's start with the 5-minute debate when 1U begins.
All right,
Dan.
so I'm gonna go for this one. Steve had 2 years, but you know what? You can't take and put the blame on Steve Spurrier.
Yes, I can.
You have to put it on Daniel Snyder, the owner of the Washington Redskins, who don't know how to draft. He ends up with stupid contracts. He gives guys way more money, and then there's so many holes in the team. Nick Saban freaking won national championship before he went to the NFL.
So did Steve Spurrier. Steve Spurrier went to 2 national titles before he went to the NFL.
He won a bunch of more championships at that. So it's obviously this guy is a great coach.
Nick Saban is a great college coach, but so is Steve Spurrier. The numbers bear it out. At least Nick Saban got the Dolphins to a 9. The Dolphins got to a 9-7 year, and they were in the top 5 in defensive rating his last year. The reason that Nick Saban was bad is because the front office decided to go with Dante Culpepper instead of Drew Brees. Daniel Snyder is not the one who brought an entire staff from Florida with no NFL coaching experience and thought, oh, I can just make this up as I go along. Or have an have a coach that had no NFL experience, Steve Spurrier, where Saban had 4 years as a defensive coordinator under Belichick. So my point is Saban was more successful in college in titles But Steve Spurrier was so much worse as an NFL coach. The records bear it out. The numbers bear it out. And Saban only
all the coaches that have been through Washington, even Joe Gibbs, who won 3 Super Bowls, couldn't win in Washington because
he at least got them back to the playoffs, though. Joe Gibbs got them back to the playoffs in his newest iteration.
Would get his hands off. Would stop leaving his hands on. Let the coaches coach. And then when Spurrier went back to college, he wasn't nearly as successful.
He went to South Carolina. He had a winning record against Clemson and had 3 straight 11-win seasons in a second-tier SEC school. He didn't go to Alabama, who is constantly, and I know Saban has a part in this, at the top of recruiting classes.
They were on sanctions. They were awful. The coaches before him, DeBose and some of these guys, they put them in their what's the word? The NCAA suspension. They were all he comes in there, goes into houses, convinces mom and dad, come to Alabama. I'm going to build it back up. Does it time and time again.
Who has Saban?
Went downhill when he went back into college.
He did not go downhill. He was right where he was. He just didn't have the same pedigree of players and renown in Florida as he did in South Carolina. And who has Saban had to play in the SEC? Cam Newton that 1 year at Auburn, LSU recently. He's got a chance to roll.
You saw that 1 year that they beat him in a game 1 year.
Steve Spurrier had the greatest coach.
Georgia goes in there and beats them.
Steve Spurrier had to contend with the greatest coach of that era in the 90s in Bobby Bowden at Florida State. And he took him to the wire and beat him a few times, even in terms of getting a national championship.
They flipped it back and forth. 1 year they would win, 1 year.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Who has Saban had in the SEC who he's dealt that with? Nobody, because it's always rotating and people are coming in. His biggest rival is out of conference, someone who he only gets to see in national championships, and that's Dabo Swinney, and they're 500 against each other. And Dabo's actually won more titles against Saban. So, again, my point.
You can't blame the bad coach in the NFL for Spurrier on Spurrier. It's Daniel Snyder.
Yes, I can.
He's in the bad situation.
Here's my trump card. Here's how I can. Here's how I can blame it on Spurrier. He pleaded with Daniel Snyder to draft Patrick Ramsey in the first round, and they did. And they were awful in all offensive categories. At least Saban was able to get the Miami Dolphins to good defensive numbers, and he even got players like Ronnie Brown to 1,000 yards for offense with a terrible team that was being helmed by Dante Culpepper coming off a knee injury. So again, Saban was much better as an NFL coach than Steve Spurrier was.
Wow, it's obviously he's a better college coach than Spurrier.
He is a better college coach in terms of titles, but Steve Spurrier had an .817 win percentage at Florida and won 6 SEC titles with, I think, better competition in the SEC than Nick Saban has. So I think the regular season numbers.
Competition. Tennessee? They had Tennessee with freaking Peyton Manning. They've had good teams.
That's what I'm saying. I'm saying Spurrier had more competition in the SEC than did Nick Saban.
Back in the day, that was really good. They had some good teams in the West that were good. Auburn had some good years.
And Cam Newton that 1 year.
Time. Jesus. Wow. Whew. I almost brought out my. Wow, this is getting very hard already.
The penalty flag? Threw a penalty flag?
I'm not throwing the penalty flag. I might call a commercial timeout. So basically,
fair enough.
Yeah, I call a commercial. Okay, the commercial's over. All right. Let's go into the closings. Let me set the timer back. Hold on. All right. Oops. Sorry. Just want to start my drink. All right. Let's go into the 60-second closing. Start out with Robert. Let's start with him. 60 seconds. We'll begin when he begins talking.
Again, I don't deny that Nick Saban has had more success in terms of titles, but I think being at Alabama, I think the competition in the SEC and Dabo Swinney at Clemson, who only meets a national title, speaks a lot to that. The gulf between Spurrier and Saban in college is actually closer than you think, but the gap between Nick Saban being 15-17 with a 9-7 record, who just left because he preferred college as opposed to Spurrier, who was 12-20, who left in disgrace, who people still make fun of him. Washington players still make fun of him. He's been apologizing for this since he left because he took that big contract. until very recently, until like a year or two ago. Steve Spurrier was awful. He could not generate an offensive game plan. He wanted to bring his dudes from Florida because he knew them, who had no experience. He made all those decisions because he was making $5 million a year, which in 2002 was a lot at that time. Nick Saban had experience in the NFL. He parlayed that into being decent in Miami. The only thing that sunk him was the Culpepper Breeze thing. He was good. Steve Spurrier was terrible.
Time. All right. This is getting good indeed. All right. Dan, before you start, you still have your 1 minute extension if you're willing.
Yeah, I'm going to use that right now.
All right. And use it. All right. Use this extension. All right. Your 1 minute extension. Timer begins when you begin talking.
All right. So Daniel Snyder was the owner of the Washington Redskins when Steve Spurrier was the coach. He not only had to get rid of him, he brought back a 3-time Super Bowl winning coach. And Joe Gibbs couldn't even win in Washington with Daniel Snyder as the owner. You cannot blame the coaches for the failure that the owner makes stupid contracts, like ridiculous amounts of money for an offensive lineman, then they can't sign receivers and running backs and things like that. You can't blame Spurrier. Spurrier had one great. We had some good years at Florida. Won a national championship in 1996. But then when he came back after the debacle in Washington, he came back to South Carolina. He was mediocre at best. He had the Southern Bobby Bowden was Clemson coach. South Carolina, there weren't a lot of great SEC teams at that time. Alabama was under sanctions. The other thing is this. Nick Saban won a national championship at LSU before he went off. He goes to Miami. They give him nothing to succeed whatsoever. He's awful. It's the egos of the players. It's the GMs. It's a different thing. He goes back to college, gets in those houses, gets the moms and dads, gets them kids to come to Alabama, builds it up from they were under NCAA sanction, build it up with national championship after national championship, and he's had competition. Auburn, Texas A&M, Georgia, they've had really good, and then they always get some out-of-conference teams. Michigan, they play different out-of-conference teams to start the season, so they don't play they're always playing more games than everybody else, and he's continuing to win all those games. It's obviously Nick Saban is the better college coach and the worst NFL coach.
All right, time. All right. Whew. This is going to be my hardest one indeed. Let's go to our judges. Already got my answer up. All right, let's just wait to the judges for a second. Very good closings for Dan and Robert. And I'm going to start out with me because this is a very back and forth argument, and it was really close for me when I was thinking about it. But I think Dan put some great examples of Saban didn't live up to what he did when he went to Miami, and he even put some knocks against Robert. But not all Spurs fans. It's not mainly his fault. It was the ownership with Dan Snyder, and basically the contract was huge. And even point out, even after he got back for the pros, he was always people look as a mere coach at best, and basically just point out some great examples of why Nick Saban just sort of didn't live up to it, but just didn't have the right ideas to transfer to a pro coach. And even more of a worse argument is he came from more sort of a Belichick school of coaches, and also that part just doesn't help. And I'm actually get my point to Dan right here. So with that, Dan gets 1-0. Going to start with GB3 for his thoughts of the argument and who gets the point and why.
So this argument was a lot different than the other ones as far as like both of their choices were very similar paths to their story, with them having success in NCAA and then it not transferring in the NFL and then back, to the NCAA with more success. I had to center my argument more on the negatives of the NFL part because both looks like they both had success But I focused more on my attention on the negatives with the NFL, and I thought that that was very close again. There was a lot of good points brought by both, but I thought that uh, a lot of the Dolphins' success as far as their record goes when it comes to the statistical stuff, like the reasonings for a lot of or the reasonings a lot that Dan brought up a lot was like it was the owner was the reason, but the stats are stats, and with that, I gave my point to Robert just barely based on the negatives of the NFL season.
All right. It's a 1-1 tie again. All right, Kevin. You're just basically the deciding factor. And who gets the point and why?
Yeah, this was definitely a tough one because these are the two very obvious picks. There, I like JB3 had to basically boil it down to the NFL time. There were good points brought up by both, but about Robert brought up the fact that Saban was 4 years under Belichick as a DC. Dan, was countering with the you can't blame the coach for the owner's ineptitude. This was tough. I mean, you have one coach, 15 and 19 with Saban, and 12 and 20 with Spurrier. It's very so damn close. But Saban did have, he had the season where, like Robert brought up with Ronnie Brown, and there were just he kept rebutting to everything that Dan brought up. I felt super close. This could have literally gone either way, just by a hair, giving it to Robert.
All right. Okay, with that. All right. With that, annual winner and his Sports Brawl debut, Mr. Robert Castner. Congratulations, Robert. You finally get your very first victory on Sports Brawl. And Dan, you came very close. We're making a comeback, and you came very close. Like I said, it's a very tough argument and it just came very close in sports terms, slims of margins.
Yeah, well, I guess nobody noticed the fact I said Joe Gibbs, who won 3 Super Bowls, comes back to watch, and he can't win. So this guy's a 3-time Super Bowl winning champion, comes back and he can't win. So it's not Steve Spurrier, because even a 3-time Super Bowl champ can't win. You got to blame the owner for the problems in Washington in the picking of players and the drafting of players and putting his hands in where he shouldn't be, where it's the coach's job to coach and handle players. And that's and obviously they didn't hear that part of my argument, because I would think that would make a difference, because that's a apples to apples comparison. They both did bad in Washington under Daniel Snyder's reign. And then Joe Gibbs had a different owner, and he wins 3 Super Bowls. So it tells you right there. But obviously, I gotta give my congratulations to Robert. He did a great job, made some good points. I still can't believe I lost the Fenway Park one. I mean, I said everything I could about Fenway Park and the fans and everything. I don't know how I lose that one. But, hey, not taking anything away from Robert. He did a great job. Obviously, he's a sports fan, so he knows what he's talking about. So, hey, it's just it's all about the interpretation of what we say. And so that's why you guys made your decisions the way you made them. But, hey, I'll do this again. I love doing this kind of stuff. I just wish one of these days maybe I get a win. I don't know. I think I'm making some good arguments, but obviously not good enough. So.
And I'll just say this: you will be back. You will be back, and I got you some in the docket for a future match. And don't worry, you will get your first victory in Sports Brawl right here in the future. And basically, it came very close though. You pull up a great argument of 4 of your rounds though. Just keep your right here, and don't worry, you'll be back. And one last thing before I get to talk to Robert, is there any player on Sports Brawl or even not in the league do you want to call a challenge with?
No, not really. I just whoever you guys line them up. Hopefully, one of these days I'll knock them down.
All right. Okay. That's cool. And don't worry, Dan, you will be back. And I just want to say congratulations on a great fight. And let's interview the winner of his very first Sports Brawl bout, Mr. Robert Castner. And wow, your very first victory on your only Sports Brawl in debate in general. It very got close on that one. Even don't let the score mislead of the closeness of the fight itself.
I thought it was going to, too, when we were going to a speed round. Dan is fantastic. Those arguments that he made were really well and thought. Again, I said as part of the Joe Gibbs parlay that he did go to the playoffs with the team. But that being said, I'm not here to rebut choices. Dan made some really good arguments. I tried to take as quantifiable an approach at this as possible, but he's right. This is kind of putting out the best argument, seeing what sticks with judges, and then it goes forward. So I'm very lucky. I'm very lucky. Everything was a split decision. It's not like the first two guys went with me or went with him in either case. It was always split and came down to the third person. So I'm like Apollo in Rocky 1. You know, I won by split decision, but it doesn't mean that Dan didn't throw a lot of haymakers and it was by the slimmest of margins. It didn't put me down a couple times, and I didn't think I thought I wouldn't get up. So I'm very lucky.
All right. With that, you're 1-0 right now in Sports Brawl. We will see you in future debate matches anytime soon. And before we're going to talk to our judges or in our sign-off, is any person around Sports Brawl or not in the league in general do you want to call a challenge with?
I don't want to challenge, but I watched my good buddy Amaru debate a couple times, and I always respect kind of his opinion on things. So I would like to go toe-to-toe with him, not as a challenge, as like something that's really combative and belligerent, just because I think we would come at it with really eloquent and well-versed arguments, and I think that'd be cool.
Okay. I'll keep that in mind. And just want to say congratulations, Robert, and you did a fantastic job right here. All right. And
thank you.
You're welcome. All right. Let's go into bring up the judges up here real quick. And just going to start out with Kevin. And it is very much a nail biter. Would you agree on that?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I'll echo what Robert said, and I already had that in the back of my mind, that every single argument came down to a 2-1, 2-1 decision. So there weren't any. I don't think there were any clean sweeps there. And it was super close. I had Dan with the Fenway Park thing. I'm with you, Dan. I don't really know how you lost that one, but yeah, I mean, this was a great match. I like when it's close, and we, puts pressure on us.
Yeah. JB3, same thing in below.
Yeah, that was a very, very close debate. I mean, look, like you said, every single question and every one I had to I had to think about there was no way you could have just missed some of this debate. There was no landslide. Some debates you judge, you watch, you see it go completely one way, and you're just like, okay, but not one single question was like that for these two. They both brought the heat. And as a fan, I enjoyed it. As a judge, I enjoyed it. And I think that both Robert and Dan both did a wonderful job. So great job, guys.
And basically, let's just do a quick sign-off real quick. I'm going to start out with our winner, Robert. Is there any plugs or tie-ins that you want to come out?
No, I'm just in a lot of trivia leagues in TMG. I have a team match coming up at some point soon. I'm around all these movie trivia leagues. It was nice to have one where sports was a thing. So find me on Facebook, Robert Castner. I'll be in all these leagues, so you'll probably see me a bit here and there.
All right. Dan, any plays or tie-ins you want to promote real quick?
Yeah, I am a film critic. I write for a website called disappointmentmedia.com. That's DISIPOINTSMEDIA. sportsbrawl.com. I didn't come up with the name. I just write for them. Also, I have a couple shows on that I do on YouTube. One called Bleacher Features with that guy right there, Kevin Poss was on my Hoosiers episode. Also, another show called The Top 5 Weekly, which haven't been a lot of movies out in theaters, so can't really do the Top 5 Weekly because it's picked basically based on what movie comes out in theaters, which I could pick up a topic. So, but I've done a lot of if somebody had died, I reviewed a movie that they died, like Brian Denny. I'm probably going to do Wilford Brimley, probably The Natural here pretty soon. Also, do retrospectives, a lot of retrospectives lately because there's not a lot of movies. So doing 35th anniversary, 20th anniversaries, 25-year anniversaries. So you can go to the website and check all those out. But also just find me on Dan Skip Allen on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Pinterest.
All right. Go to our fellow judges right here. Kevin, any plugins or tie-ins that you want to promote real quick?
Yeah, absolutely. TMG Trivia, we're just getting started up, but everybody please like, share, subscribe, join. I am the TM Geek Commissioner, as you can see there. That is our Inner Geekdom League. So if you would like a match, please hit us up, and we will definitely get you in one as quickly as possible.
All right. JB3, any plugs or tie-ins that you want people can find you?
Oh, yeah, you can find me over at Nerd Entertainment Network. I run CWT, that's Combat Wrestling Trivia, every Monday night, 7 p.m. Eastern. You can find us live in the chats if you want to check us out. I'm always there watching the match and chatting with the guys. Sometimes on Thursdays, but Monday is the day that we're going to typically go with. We also got Movie Trivia Challenge and some other good things coming. Also, Suplex City Chats, TMG Entertainment, Thursday nights, from 9 to 10 Eastern. Talk about the week of wrestling, all the crazy things happening throughout the whole week, which lately has actually been a lot. So yeah, check us out. TMG Entertainment, Thursday nights, 10 Eastern. That's 10 p.m. Eastern.
Okay. And also, you can find me around on Facebook, right, at Jonathan Peck, and you also find me on Twitter and Instagram at JetPet1098. And also, if you're very interested to compete in Sports Brawl, contact me if you want to come in for a future match, or join the Facebook group to TNG Entertainment right here to join some, not only for Sports Brawl, but to Movie Battleground, Dirt Fights, and even video games and stuff. People think you like them stuff. They're very good places to debate, of course. And from me, to Robert, to Dan, to Kevin, to